This time we want to take a few minutes to just recognize and thank God for some very special people here at Salem and for the faithful music ministry of Dave and Lanita Farstad and Jan Nelson. So I had a chance to visit with all three of them this past week and just kind of trying to get a little bit of history of how long they've been playing and when they started, those types of things. Also asked them if they had any memorable situations, memorable events that happened. They shared even a few embarrassing stories. And so just want to take a few minutes here to acknowledge these amazing Christian people. I'm going to start with Lanita. She shared that she started playing piano when she was 8 years old. Miss Swan, she said, was her name, that taught her how to play the piano. And then, as was, I think, the case with all of them, once they got to college, once they went to Dr. Martin Luther College, that's where they actually learned how to play the organ. But before that, with their piano skills, they were able to play, and this was true of Lanita, able to play for worship, be able to lead worship on an organ, but one of those that you didn't need to actually know how to play a full organ with all the stops and all the pedals and all those things. So able to do that. Then she taught at Salem here for 1 year, called to teach at Salem. That was back in 1960. Played piano, played organ while she was here. Then was in Johnson, Minnesota. She was teaching there for 2 years. Played organ while she taught there. And somewhere in there, she must have met Dave, because Dave was, after college, was assigned out to Seattle, Washington area. He was there for a year before they finally got married, and then Lanita joined him out in Seattle, Washington. So she played there for 6 years while they were out there. And then back in 1969 is when then they came back to Salem. Dave was called to be the principal and teacher, and so they came back. And from that point on, from 1969 all the way up to 2020, she would play off and on for worship. She would play for weddings and funerals, and those were some of her favorite memories of being asked and being able to play for weddings and funerals. But she also, I think what we probably know Lanita most for is her piano lessons. She has been a piano teacher. The best she could recall was 1975, 76, about that time frame when she started. So you do the math, it's almost 50 years of piano lessons. And just because I'm curious, how many people sitting here this morning have had Mrs. Farstad for piano lessons? You might want to stand up and look at that. Keep your hands up, nice and high. Lanita, stand up and take a look at this. Yeah, look at how many people you touched playing piano. And the cool thing is, she's still doing it. Still has, 30, 40 students, something like that? I don't know how she keeps up, but still doing that. So, obviously, Lanita Farstad has touched many lives with her musical abilities. And all told, off and on, she has been playing piano organ for 59 years. So keep that number in mind. Dave started piano lessons back in day school years. His day school teacher taught him, then his pastor wife taught him. This was back in Morrison, South Dakota. That was his home congregation in Trinity in Morrison. He still remembers the first song that his mom taught him on the piano, Black Hawk Waltz. And here's the thing, she didn't have the music for it. She just knew it. So she played it, and then he'd play it. She'd play it, he'd play it. First song he learned. Played organ back in 8th grade already, all through high school, and again, if you had the ability to play the piano, you were able to do that. Started organ lessons then when he was in college at DMLC, and he just mentioned that it didn't come natural to him. This was hard work to be able to figure it out, and obviously he did, and the Lord blessed him with that skill. Then, after graduating, he was assigned out to Seattle, Washington, get this, to serve as the 1st through 8th grade teacher, principal, youth and adult choir director, Sunday school director, and the organist. And he faithfully did that for 7 years. Then to Salem, 1969, served as an organist and then head organist for many years. And it was true of all of the three that we're honoring here. They also served in other congregations. It wasn't just at Salem. They were able to take their talents and abilities to other places as well. And then also served not just here, but he served over in Montrose, St. Paul's in Montrose as the organist for, he said, about 15 full-time, but over 20 years off and on. And then he finally had to stop in 2020, and it wasn't because of COVID. It was because of neuropathy in his hands and feet. He just couldn't do it anymore. But not that his heart didn't still want to do it. He also, a couple other things that he did with his musical abilities, he did give a few piano lessons, not many. Gave some guitar lessons. All the different instruments, he played a piano and the pump organ, that'll come in mind later, pipe organs, electric organs, accordion, and guitar. And I put them in that order, accordion and guitar. Here's why. His parents bought him that accordion, learned to play it very well. And then when he was in college, we do things in college, he sold it for his first electric guitar and amplifier. So, and of course we know that here at Salem, he continues to use that gift. Had played for many weddings and funerals, certainly wishes that he could still play. The Lord had gave him that gift and he wanted to serve the Lord in that way. So you put all of his years together and it is about 67 years. Okay, so keep that in mind. But also, he shared a few memorable moments, even one kind of embarrassing one. But when he was out in Seattle, serving out there, he remembers the New Year's Eve service. They were in between churches. They had to change churches. And that was back in the day when there was a pump organ. If you guys don't know how pipe organs work, they need air to blow through those pipes to make the sound. Now it's all electronic. But back in the day, the organist had to sit there and pump pedals to pump air through it. First stanza, first hymn, New Year's Eve, one of the straps broke. He's down to one. It's a communion service. So he's got to switch back and forth feet so he doesn't get so tired. So he's got to keep pumping to keep the music going all the way through that service. Also mentioned just some special occasions that he was asked to play for. He got to play a hymn for his own college graduation back at DMLC. He played for West graduation one year. You said one of the kids was graduating that year. You weren't sure if that was the case, but played for a Christmas service when he was in high school. Quite an honor. And then he was also invited back to his home congregation back in Morrison for their 100th anniversary, and had the privilege of playing organ while his organ teacher was actually in the audience, had been able to make it. But he did share, actually just shared this morning, one embarrassing time when he was out at Montrose. He had just changed some blood medication, and he didn't read the fine details that said do not operate vehicles or motor things. Anyway, he was at the organ and then sat at the chair behind it during the sermon and kind of passed out. And next thing he knows, some guy in a white robe, here he thinks he made it to heaven, was actually Pastor Grabitsky saying, "Mr. Farstad, would you mind playing the last hymn?" So yeah, all in all, 67 years that Dave served. Jan Nelson, similar to the rest, started playing piano when she was in second grade. Started playing for church at age 14 and all the way through high school. And then went, again, DMLC, that's where she learned to play the organ and all the stops and pedals and all those types of things. During her college years, she received an emergency call. So she hadn't graduated yet, but she received an emergency call to teach out in Los Angeles, California. And of course, while she was out there during that year, that is one of the things she also did, is she played organ while she was there. Then from LA, she returned back to college, graduating in 1968. From there, she was assigned to teach here at Salem. So that's how she came to Salem. Then a couple years later, she accepted a call to Reformation Lutheran School out in San Diego, California. However, that was short-lived because over Christmas break that year, Eugene popped the question, and so she came back to this area, got married, and ended up, we were able to extend a call to her to serve here back at Salem. But all that while, out in California, and then back here at Salem, playing organ the whole time. Any opportunity she had, any opportunity she could fill in, she was willing to do that. And she has continued playing organ up until this past year. But in addition to just serving here and serving the different congregations in the area, as many of you know, she's also a snowbird. And so she's been going down to Florida for the past, 12, 13 years. And so anytime you go to a Wells church and you find out you're an organist, you're going to get tapped. And sure enough, she was able to be a sub down there as well. And so, putting it all together, she has led worship from the piano or the organ off and on for over 64 years. Do the math. So, some memorable events that she shared. While she was doing that emergency teaching call out in L.A., one of the first Sundays that she was there, she had to accompany the choir. Well, the organ is way up front, and then the choir was way in the back, and the pastor was the director. And so, it was time for the choir anthem, and so she gets on the organ and gives them their notes, right? Gives them the chord, da-da-da. And they start, and it was awful. It sounded terrible. And so they stopped. She's like, what is going on? I know they're better than this. Plays the notes again, and they start, and it was awful. They stop again. Pretty soon, the pastor from the back of church, Miss Schlomer, please play the anthem, not the hymn. So she was playing the next hymn instead of the choir anthem, so she was giving them the wrong notes. Gave them the right notes, they were off and running. One other, and I'm anxious to see who remembers this one. One other kind of embarrassing moment that she shared is when she was playing organ, but she was also serving as choir director, and so she needed to quickly get off the organ bench and get down to the choir, and in the process of doing that, decided to trip right down these stairs. Her heel got caught, and down she went, and she could hear all the air being sucked out of the room. Who was here? Who remembers that by chance? They do. No one else. Yeah. She was fine. It was all good. So, put that all together. 59 years, 67 years, 64 years adds up to 190 years. For all those years, yes, overlapping, serving in so many different congregations, using their talents. Here's a couple amazing things. Every one of them, privileged. They felt privileged to be able to do this. Here's an opportunity that I can serve the Lord. And here's the other thing. They are all still serving in some way. They've had to step back. They've had to scale it back, but they're all still serving with their music abilities in some way. And so, if you three could please stand. Would you stand? Appreciate that. So on behalf of Salem, the members, the friends, faculty, and staff, thank you for your faithful and long service in the music and the worship here. Thank you. You can have a seat. Thank you so much.